Welcome back. Let's now get you an exclusive conversation with Tata Consumer Products. My colleague Shilpa caught up with Deepika Bhan, the president of packaged foods at the company, and began by asking her about the demand scenario, particularly entering into the festive season, price hikes, the areas of focus for the food business. Listen in, and after that conversation, we'll get into a break. And on the other side is Business 360.
When you look at inflation, you can clearly see it abate in a few categories. You can also see it accelerate in a few. So, I mean, that's a mixed bag. If you look at rural demand, I think, August left us a bit worried about rain. That being said, September came in better. Now, the question is when you tie up the deficits, and depending on how the state-wise monsoon count comes through and the impact it has on rural income. So that's a mixed bag. I wouldn't say it's necessarily poor, but we just got to see how that plays out.
And then on those lines, how do you then see the trajectory for volume growth then? Now, in the past year and a half, we've seen negative, we've seen double digit. Last 2 quarters, I think we're in the 6 to 8 range. So going forward, how do you then see volume play out?
So, from a foods business standpoint, we continue to be, continue to be very optimistic about growth. If you look at the more recent term trends, right, the last 2 quarters, we've seen growth on the other side of 24. At a revenue level, we've also seen, like you said, volume growth, which is at the 6 to 8% level. Even if you look at the long-term CAGR, it looks good. On some of the categories where we've actually taken aggressive prices as well, like salt, we've still come on the other side competitively winning. Like salt over a 2-3 year time period is 600 bips plus of share gain. Yeah. So to that extent, I think we've been able to navigate. And I think where we are this year, can't say it's more complex than the last 2. Continue to see that there's great opportunity for growth.
Right, and you said it came on the back of a lot of price increases. Would you be able to sort of help me understand or pinpoint to, apart from salt, what other categories did you take price increases in the past quarter and what the range would have been?
Yes. In order to ensure that we do have sustainable businesses in line with the table, we've taken up prices.
Right. Any range that you can give me sort of understand better how much of a price increase we've seen in your Sampann portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what previous time period you are looking at, but I think that there has been price growth.
Right. So you do see that the growth going ahead will be still a mix of price and volume, or do you see volume-led growth?
Yeah, I think my view is, see, at the end of the day, you've got to have a sustainable business model. So there's no way to sign off on the year to say it's going to be volume, not price. That's in any case a difficult equation to post growth. So there will have to be price, but I think the trick when you're playing large portfolios is you've got to measure and spread it across the portfolio.
Right.
So we've certainly not shied away from very bold price increases. So some of the categories that we have, we'd want to be more cautious and look at where there's upside. A good way that we always look at our portfolio is, especially where we are in large compete categories, is to see that the RPIs or the relative price indexes we are holding.
Right.
So I think maybe in some, I would say you certainly can't say it's only volume and there won't be price, but you want to be very cautious about price.
Yeah, right. But which are these categories that you see that there is an upside?
Overall on growth, I would say across the portfolio. If you're talking specifically pricing, I think I would say that we look at it across the portfolio, to be honest, where we can get. So from a category standpoint, I don't think you could leave a category. You'd protect some variants, add to some variants, right? So at a category level, I don't think you can deliver a large business by being price constant. But do we now do it on variants which we haven't exercised earlier? Is what's going to be key.
So my understanding is that there is still scope for price increases given the fact that within the foods business, given the fact that inflation is still a mixed bag.
Yeah, and also I think look at price increase as a larger territory. So premiumizing is a way of increasing price.
I wanted to talk about the spices portfolio also. I think that is one portfolio that sort of saw an impact of food inflation also.
Yeah.
Right. Has there been an impact in sort of the demand or in terms of sales there, or has your premiumization play helped in the spices business? Just an overall understanding.
We haven't really seen a slow in consumption in any way on spices. We have to stay very conscious on spices because we are a small player in a large category. It's very clearly a share gain context for us. So we are careful about the relative price increases. Specifically to your question on inflation, we have seen consumer prices go up, right? And so, I do think that, I would hope that you don't see too much more inflation on the spices side of the business where we are now. But I think that for Sampann, which is where the spices business sits, we've got a lot of other categories to balance.
Right.
So spices, of course, large and juicy, it's 60,000 crores. As a category, but the larger part of our business and the even larger category is, of course, the larger staples, where dals is 150,000. And so that allows us to also balance Sampann to an extent.
But pulses also, actually, I was coming to that next. That's also a category that has seen sort of inflation also. So, I mean, is the larger part of the Sampann category impacted by inflation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, do we have to find a way to really tease out all lines of the P&L, to find a way to protect consumer price?
Right. And, I want to sort of understand, if we look at between Yumside, Sampann, Soulful, which of these categories or which of these brands are your biggest growth drivers, and where do you see the foods business laying the larger focus on?
Yeah, so I mean, I think in any business at any point you're sort of playing for the current. So our core businesses will always be most critical because business is indexed there, right? Yeah. That being said, we are very aggressive about growing growth businesses. So whether you mention Sampann, whether you mention Soulful, these are strong growth engines, right? Even bigger for us as time goes, as their scale increases. So that is definitely lever 2, and we are trying to grow there. But I think we're also very focused on growing smaller, newer bets. They are not large enough today, but we have to play them today for them to be, large and useful tomorrow. For example, we spoke last on Tata GoFit, you remember, right? And so we are also doing plays like that. Within this time period, they are not material in terms of top line, but they are very material in terms of learning.
So my understanding from our conversation so far is like the next growth areas for you in terms of the business, apart from the core, would be GoFit and Yumside?
The next growth businesses for us continue to be Sampann first, right? Because that is the premium, and as we've shared as well, they are our growth engine businesses, and of course, GoFit and protein as well.